We were talking about Franklin Roosevelt's three R's: relief, reform, and recovery, and some of the programs he institutes to help people recover are programs like the Civilian Conservation Corps. This is like a work program where they put young men to work out in state parks, national parks, on various projects. You can see here this was an advertisement poster for young men, and specifically they wanted men 18 to 24. And the idea was we're going to put them to work and we'll teach them skills that'll make them marketable in the job market when they get done working for us. And so you see right here a map in the United States of all the different sites. So these men would go out and they would stay at a barracks during the week, stay at a barracks out in a state park somewhere, and the government would provide their meals. They would provide, of course, the housing, and you'd be working most of the day, and you would have to send some of your money from your paycheck back to a family because you weren't going to need much out there anyway. So the idea was we help young men, we pay them, we get work done, and we teach them skills, and they send money back to some loved ones at home to help stimulate the economy there too, right? The Agricultural Adjustment Administration, this was an interesting concept. These areas were a lot of the areas where farming was hit hardest and where they needed some help. So the Agricultural Adjustment Administration would specifically pay farmers not to farm certain parts of their land and to kill livestock. And if that seems like a crazy idea, it's not as crazy as you would think. The idea was to decrease the supply of products on the agricultural market. And when you decrease supply, you're basically going to cause an uptick in the prices. And since there's less crops and less livestock to go around, the prices will naturally go up. And that's a good thing for farmers because they are going to be able to make money again. People now have money because they're getting jobs through government programs like the CCC. Federal emergency relief is going well, but not everybody liked the AAA. A lot of farmers had this concept that it was charity, and they didn't want a handout. They wanted to work for what they got. And not to mention, a lot of people had a problem with killing livestock and not farming certain parts of the land when so many people in the country were going hungry. Another program, the TVA, set up a system of locks and dams throughout the Tennessee Valley area. And the idea was that these dams were not just to control water flow, but also to generate hydroelectricity for that particular area. A lot of that place still hadn't been electrified and set up on a grid yet. And you see right here, we're not going to get too deep into the science, but the idea is that water flowing through the dam turns turbines and generates electricity where you don't have to burn any fossil fuels as part of the deal. Okay. You also get something called the Works Progress Administration, who would go around in a lot of urban areas, and you see right here, they would construct like sidewalks or repair buildings or put up railing or whatever needed to be done. If you look at the streets in Huntington, where the general area where we live, the bricks on the streets, the old brick streets, are still very much around, and they were laid by the WPA. If you go to the Barbersville Park area, both the CCC and WPA were active in building some of those older buildings and trails that you see out there. Social Security, one of the lasting programs of Franklin Roosevelt's relief and the New Deal that he sets up. Social Security was a pension for retirees, and the idea is that the people who were senior citizens are some of the most vulnerable because they can't go back and work anymore. If you lost your life savings, yes, that was bad, and we were going to help you, but at least you could go back and try to get another job and work again. Senior citizens didn't always have that luxury, and they shouldn't have to deal with that. So everyone would get, from now on, a Social Security card with a specific identification number. And you can see there that's what the number's set up. And most of us, if you were born in the West Virginia area, like a lot of us were, you get a grouping like 231, 232, 233, and so forth. But the idea is that you get a retirement pension. You pay into the system, and you'll notice if you've already started getting paychecks, you pay about 6% of your salary towards that, and you get money when you retire. Okay. Now, the programs for recovery that Franklin Roosevelt sets up, they are going to have some benefits. There's some problems with them as well, but you see Franklin Roosevelt's first New Deal, the programs that set up the 3 R's, unemployment rate's going to start to drop. And it's not entirely the New Deal that's going to cure unemployment rates. but you're going to see there World War II is going to, when that comes about, it's going to seriously lower unemployment rates to levels that America had really never seen since they started measuring the figure. Not only that, but the New Deal program, you're going to see GDP start to increase again. Remember, gross domestic product, the value of all the goods and services in any particular country. So the New Deal programs, listen, it's hard to tell what to attribute to the New Deal and what to attribute to businesses and good decision making and changes made by people. But most historians would tell you that the New Deal does have a positive impact on the economic situation of the United States. So Franklin Roosevelt's trying to work America out of the Depression. And while that's going on, the rest of the world's struggling with the Depression too. That's not all that's happening. Let's take a look at France very briefly. France, you see here, the French are still trying to maintain their empire. You can locate it in Europe there. They still have their African colonies, some colonies scattered throughout island regions, South America, the Caribbean, and you also see, of course, Indochina. That massive French empire, though, was still in a danger zone here, and here's why. A closer look at France, you can see that France is located right there above Italy, next to Spain, and France is still obsessed with holding Germany accountable for World War I and making sure they get their reparations payments and making sure that Germany doesn't rearm itself. And so they're looking for friends to help them enforce that. And remember, we mentioned in the 1920s that Great Britain is really not interested in helping to enforce that treaty. They're not going to send troops over there. They're not going to be a hard case on Germany. And France reaches out to the United States, and the U.S. is not really interested in that either. And France even tries to enlist the help a little bit of Eastern Europe. They can't really go to the Soviet Union because the communism there and Joseph Stalin are busy trying to correct their own country, plus they don't trust capitalist nations. And at one point they tried to cobble together like a little alliance on the other side of Germany between like Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Hungary. They tried to forge it together and they called it the Little Entente. But those countries lack the stability and the military power to really check Germany. They're really no threat to them. France tries to reach out to Italy, but Italy and Mussolini and his fascist tendencies are going to be more similar to Hitler and the Germans than they are to the French and their democracy and their capitalism. So really, France is just trying to find friends. They've got the Maginot Line, again, that they think is going to help defend them in case Germany ever does attack again. But they really, really are desperately searching for some friendships in the international world, and they're coming up empty. Okay? Let's talk to Germany now. Germany in particular, remember Hitler, when we last left off, Hitler was a guy who had been thrown into jail for trying a coup d'etat. He had helped organize the Nazi Party, and you would think that would be the end of Hitler's story, but it's not the end of Hitler's story. Hitler and the Nazis, once Hitler gets out of prison, remember he only serves a couple years, once he gets out, he starts reorganizing and he says, I went about this the wrong way. Instead of trying a coup, an illegal takeover of the government, we're going to win elections. We're going to win elections, and if we can't win elections, we're going to rig them as well. We're going to try to intimidate or force our way into government and try to make it as legal as possible. And the Nazis start campaigning vigorously. In 1932, not only do you have a record number of Nazis who are going to get in the German lawmaking body, but Hitler runs for president in 1932 because he's saying all the things that people want to hear. We need to break the chains of the Treaty of Versailles. We need to get ourselves out of this economic mess. And he says, I know who to blame for it. It's the Jews and the communists. They're the ones ruining German society. Hitler, you see this little campaign poster of Hitler's. It's very simple and straightforward. And Hitler and the Nazis put a lot of thought into these. Notice that it's black and white. A lot of political posters are all about trying to be colorful. Hitler wants to contrast that. He's staring straight at you no matter where you are in a room. This poster looks like it's staring right at you. This is a good one too. This was on a magazine cover. Hitler sowing the seeds of peace. You got a silhouette background, an angel blowing a trumpet, and Hitler is like an angel, and we just don't know it. Look at this one. This might be my favorite one. This one says, vote Hitler, break the chains. Ooh, I like it. Now, Hitler's not going to win the presidency, but what is interesting in 1932 is You see, in July 1932, the Nazis will get 37% of the lawmaking body in the German Reichstag. And that absolutely terrifies a lot of people, because the Nazis, you can see in 1928, they hardly had any support. And just 4 years later, they have a huge portion of the lawmaking body. They don't have a majority, but they have more than anybody else. Also, too, the person who wins the presidency is this gentleman, Paul von Hindenburg. And we'll get to him in the next video.